Sometimes life pulls people away from you. Suddenly, you're left wondering why someone you cared for walked away, why a relationship ended, why the circle that once felt like home now feels like a distant memory. And in those moments it hurts. It feels like loss, like rejection, like something sacred has been taken from you. But here's the truth I need you to hear. Some disconnections are blessings, trust me. Not everyone who starts with you is meant to finish with you. Not everyone who claps for you today wants to see you win tomorrow. Some connections were only meant to teach you, not travel the whole journey with you. That friend who ghosted you? That partner who gave up? That opportunity that slipped through your fingers? Don't curse the silence. Sometimes silence is protection. Sometimes distance is direction. Because when you're connected to the wrong people, the wrong habits, or the wrong places, you're weighed down. You don't see it at first. You think you're just being loyal, just holding on. But what if what you're holding on to is what's holding you back? You can't elevate while clinging to anchors. Disconnection clears the path. It creates space for peace, for growth, for purpose, for the right people to walk in, the right doors to open, the right you to rise. You weren't abandoned. You were realigned. You weren't rejected. You were redirected. And that's the kind of blessing that doesn't always come with a bow on top. It comes in tears, in long nights, in solitude. But it births clarity, strength, power. So trust the disconnections. Trust the exits. Trust the endings. Because what's meant for you will never require you to shrink, to chase, to beg. It'll grow with you. It'll inspire you. It'll match your purpose and fuel your future. Some disconnections are not setbacks. They're setups. Some people come into our lives like a gust of wind, sudden storm, full of energy, and then, just like that, they're gone. It's natural to want to hold on, to cling to moments that felt real, relationships that felt meaningful, or people who once made us feel seen. But here's something that life teaches us again and again. If we're willing to listen, not all connections are meant to be permanent. We often make the mistake of assuming that every meaningful interaction should last forever. That if someone was there in our high moments or stood by us during the storm, they must be part of our forever story. But that's not always the case. Some people are in your life to play a specific role at a specific time. And when that role is complete, life gently, or sometimes forcefully, moves them out of your path. It doesn't mean the relationship wasn't real. It doesn't mean the love wasn't true. It simply means the chapter is closed. Like a train ride, people get on and off at different stops. Some sit next to you for just a few stations, sharing stories, laughter, maybe even secrets. Others might stay for miles. But eventually everyone is going somewhere different. And when their stop arrives, they get off. You don't chase them down the platform. You let them go. Because their destination isn't your destination. Their path isn't your path. What hurts us is not always the disconnection itself, but our expectations of permanence. We expect certain people to stay forever, and when they don't, we feel betrayed, confused, or even abandoned. But if we shift our perspective, we might start to see that some connections were only meant to help us grow for a time. Maybe they taught you to trust again. Maybe they showed you how to love. Or maybe they revealed what you should never accept again. That in itself is a gift. Not all connections are built to last a lifetime. And that's not a tragedy. It's part of the design. Seasons change, and so do people. That best friend from school who knew everything about you might not understand the person you are today. That mentor who once guided you might not have the tools to support your next step. That relationship that once gave you butterflies may no longer align with your spirit. It doesn't mean you failed. It means you grow. And growth often requires release. Some people will outgrow you. Others you'll outgrow. And sometimes no one's at fault. Your souls were just moving at different paces in different directions. When we hold on to relationships that have expired, we keep ourselves stuck in a version of the past that no longer serves us. And in doing so, we block the new, the aligned, the better. You can't receive with clenched fists. You have to let go to make space. It's also important to realize that a person's role in your life doesn't determine their worth. Just because someone was temporary doesn't mean they weren't important. Even fleeting connections can leave lasting impressions. That stranger you met on a trip, that coworker who encouraged you at a low point, that short-lived friendship that sparked a shift in your mindset, all of them matter. And their impact doesn't diminish just because the relationship didn't last. The beauty of impermanence is that it teaches us to be present, to cherish people while we have them, to say what we mean, to express love without holding back, because we don't know how long we'll have them. And when the time comes for them to leave, we can grieve the loss but also honor the lesson. The truth is, you don't need lifelong connections to experience lifelong growth. Sometimes the shortest connections leave the deepest marks. So if someone has left your life recently and you're feeling the sting of that disconnection, I want you to breathe. Let the pain be real, but don't let it become permanent. Trust that some connections are like scaffolding necessary for the construction of who you're becoming, but not part of the final structure. Their purpose has been served. You don't need to hate them. You don't need to understand every reason why they left. You just need to trust that life is clearing space, that something better, something more aligned is on its way. And that in time you'll look back not with bitterness but with peace. Because not all connections are meant to be permanent, and that's okay. Life has a way of rearranging itself when we least expect it. One day everything feels stable, your relationships, your plans, your dreams. Then suddenly something shifts. A person walks away. A door closes. A path you were sure fades into fog. In the moment it feels like loss, like something important has been stripped from you. But with time, clarity begins to settle in. You realize that what looked like a setback was actually a setup. What felt like a rejection was really a redirection. This is the quiet power behind disconnection. It doesn't always take something from you, often guides you towards something better. We don't always see it that way in the beginning. When someone leaves your life, it can feel personal. It can feel like failure. The mind starts asking 1,000 questions. What did I do wrong? Why did they change? Why now? But sometimes the disconnection has nothing to do with blame. Sometimes it's simply life shifting you into alignment with something higher. That person or situation was part of your journey, not your destination. Think about it. How many times has something you desperately wanted not worked out, only for something better to come along later? How often have you found yourself grateful that you didn't end up where you once thought you belonged? Disconnection is often life's way of removing the noise so you can hear your own voice. It's the storm that clears the sky, the silence that brings revelation. When someone exits your life, don't only focus on what's gone, pay attention to what now has room to arrive. The truth is, when we're deeply attached to something or someone, we often ignore the signs that it's no longer for us. We cling out of comfort, familiarity, or fear. We silence our intuition because the bond feels too deep, the history too long. But just because something has lasted a long time doesn't mean it's meant to last forever. Duration doesn't determine destiny. And sometimes we stay connected longer than we should, simply because we're afraid of the unknown. Disconnection forces us to face that unknown. It pushes us into unfamiliar territory where we have no choice but to grow, reflect, and rediscover who we are without the attachment. That growth might come with pain, but it also comes with power. Because on the other side of that space, once the dust settles, you begin to see more clearly. You begin to understand that the relationship, the job, the environment that you thought you couldn't live without was actually limiting your growth. When life redirects you, it's not punishing you. It's protecting you. There are places you're meant to go, people you're meant to meet, and things you're meant to do, and connections can't come with you. Not because they're bad, but because they no longer fit where you're going. Just like pruning a tree allows it to grow stronger and bear more fruit, disconnection can be the pruning of your life. It may sting at first, but it's preparing you for something greater. That's why trusting the redirection is so important. Even when you don't understand it, even when it hurts, there's a version of you that exists on the other side of this. A stronger, wiser, more aligned version. But to become that version, you have to walk through the space that disconnection creates. You have to let go of the comfort zone, release what no longer serves you, and trust that something better is ahead. And here's the beautiful part: when you do trust it, life starts to open up in ways you never imagined. New people show up who see you in ways the old ones couldn't. New opportunities appear that match the person you're becoming, not the person you were. New levels of peace, purpose, and power enter your life. You stop chasing what's behind you and start embracing what's in front of you. So yes, disconnection can feel like a storm, but storms pass. And when they do, they leave behind fresh ground, ready for new things to grow. The redirection you're experiencing may not make sense right now. It may feel like confusion, disappointment, or loss. But give it time. One day you'll look back and realize this wasn't the end of something good. It was the beginning of something better. Trust the disconnection. Trust the shift. Trust the unknown. Because sometimes when life takes something away, it's only to replace it with something that finally fits the future you were always meant for. There's a quiet danger in holding on too tightly, especially when what you're clinging to no longer serves your growth. Loyalty is a beautiful trait, but when misdirected, it can become a cage. So many people stay in situations, relationships, or environments long past their expiration date, not because they're happy, not because they're thriving, but because they feel obligated, because they don't want to let go, because they've tied their identity to something that's slowly draining their spirit. But here's the truth: what you hold on to can hold you back. We like to believe that endurance is strength, that staying means we're loyal, we're committed, we're doing the right thing. And in many cases that's true. But there's a difference between being committed and being stuck. There's a fine line between perseverance and self-sabotage. Holding on to a relationship where you're constantly walking on eggshells, shrinking yourself to keep the peace, or begging for the bare minimum, it's not love. That's fear. And fear isn't a foundation for anything lasting. It's not just about people either. Sometimes we hold on to habits, jobs, beliefs, or even versions of ourselves that are no longer aligned with where we're going. Maybe you keep telling yourself that you're not good enough to chase that dream because of something someone said years ago. Maybe you're still showing up in the world as the person you had to become to survive, strong, guarded, emotionally distant, even though you're finally in a place where you could thrive if you allowed yourself to soften. The past has a powerful grip, especially when it's familiar. Familiarity tricks us into thinking it's safe, even when it's suffocating. We stay in circles that drain us because we've convinced ourselves that starting over is too risky. We tolerate being half loved, half seen, and half understood because we think it's better than being alone. But the truth is, letting go isn't the loss, it's the beginning. It's the space where transformation happens. Growth doesn't come from clinging, it comes from release. Every time you hold on to something that's no longer aligned with your purpose, you block the new things trying to enter your life. You shut the door on possibilities, relationships, and experiences that could elevate you. You stay on the same level when life is calling you higher. Think of it like climbing a mountain. At a certain point, you have to lighten your load. You can't carry every person, every memory, every old version of yourself, and expect to reach the summit. You have to decide what's worth carrying and what's just weight. It takes courage to let go, to walk away from something that once meant everything to you, to close a chapter without knowing what the next one holds. But that courage is where freedom lies. When you let go of what's holding you back, you make room for what can lift you up. You create space for new energy, new people, and new experiences that align with the person you're becoming, not the person you were forced to be. Letting go doesn't mean you didn't care. It doesn't mean the time you spent or the memories you made weren't real. It simply means you care about yourself enough to grow. It means you honor your own evolution. It means you're choosing yourself not out of selfishness, but out of wisdom. Because you finally realize that not everything you lose is a loss. Sometimes it's a rescue. The version of you that settles, that tolerates, that keeps making excuses for why you can't move forward, that version is tired. It's time to release them. It's time to stop mourning the things that are leaving your life and start celebrating the strength it takes to let them go. Because once you do, you'll start to feel lighter. You'll start to breathe easier. And you'll begin to see that what you thought you needed was just a stepping stone, not your final destination. In the end, the things that are truly meant for you will never require you to break yourself in order to keep them.
Real love doesn't clip your wings. Real purpose doesn't keep you small. A real peace doesn't come from holding on, it comes from trusting that what's meant to stay will stay will stay, and what's meant to go will go.
So loosen your grip, breathe deep. And remember, holding on can hold you back, but letting go can set you free. In a world full of noise, distractions, and constant motion, space is often the very thing we're most afraid of, but the one thing we need the most. When something or someone leaves your life, your first instinct might be to fill the gap, or someone. Distract yourself. Rush into the next relationship, the next job, the next goal. Anything to avoid the uncomfortable quiet of absence. But if you can resist that urge, if you can sit in the silence just a little longer, you'll begin to understand a powerful truth. Disconnection creates space, and space creates clarity. When you're constantly surrounded by people, opinions, expectations, drama, or even your own thoughts, it's hard to hear your own voice. You lose your inner compass. You start living in reaction to everyone else instead of intentionally choosing your direction. But when a disconnection happens, whether through a breakup, a friendship ending, or simply life shifting, it did something that most people overlook: the opportunity to be still, to reflect, and to realign with your true self. It doesn't feel like a gift at first. Let's be real, emptiness is uncomfortable. The quiet after someone leaves can feel deafening. You may feel lost, like you're floating without a map, but that space is fertile ground. It's where transformation begins. It's where distractions are cleared away. What's left is the raw, unfiltered truth of who you are and what you actually need. In that stillness, things become clearer. You start to realize which relationships were one-sided, which dreams were rooted in fear instead of passion, which parts of you were performing just to be accepted. The world will tell you that emptiness is something to fix, that being alone means you're behind, that you need to constantly be doing, achieving, or connecting to have value. The truth is, the most important breakthroughs often happen in solitude. When everything else fades away, that's when you hear the voice of your intuition. That's when you rediscover your values, your desires, your vision. That's when you finally meet yourself again, not the version others wanted you to be, but the one you were always meant to be. Space also gives you room to breathe emotionally. When you're constantly entangled with others, you absorb their energy, their moods, their needs. You end up carrying things that were never yours to begin with. Disconnection, painful as it may be, gives you the chance to detox, to release the emotional baggage, the old narratives, and the weight of being responsible for everyone else's happiness. You get to ask, what's actually mine to carry? And what have I been carrying for too long? And once that clarity begins to take shape, everything starts to shift. You no longer tolerate what you used to accept. You no longer say yes when your soul is screaming no. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself to people who never really listened in the first place. That space, that pause between chapters, becomes the most powerful turning point of your life, because clarity gives birth to confidence, and confidence gives birth to new choices. You begin to choose people who feel like peace, not pressure. You pursue dreams that are aligned with your truth, not someone else's definition of success. You create boundaries that protect your energy, not walls that hide your heart. And you realize you don't need constant noise to feel alive, you just need to feel connected to yourself. Of course, there will be moments when the old habits whisper to you, when the loneliness tempts you to run back to what's familiar. But now, you know better. You've seen what space can do. You've tasted the clarity it brings. And you've come too far to settle for chaos disguised as comfort. So if you're in a season of disconnection right now, don't rush to fill the space. Don't numb it. Don't escape it. Let it work on you. Let it show you what you couldn't see when you were surrounded. Let it shape you into the version of yourself that doesn't need to beg for love, chase validation, or prove your worth. Because once you've experienced the power of clarity, You'll never again be afraid of empty space. You'll learn that disconnection isn't the end, it's the beginning of something deeply true. And that space, it's not a void, it's a doorway. Walk through it. Growth is one of life's most beautiful gifts, but it rarely comes without cost. It often asks for something in return: comfort, familiarity, certainty, and sometimes it asks for people. As much as we'd like to believe we can carry everyone with us as we rise, the reality is that growth requires separation. Just like a rocket sheds parts of itself to break through the atmosphere, you too must release what no longer serves you in order to dissolve it. It's not easy. Separation doesn't always come with a warning. One day everything feels aligned, and the next you feel a subtle shift, a disconnect, a distance, a quiet change that you can't quite name. That's often the first sign that you're outgrowing something or someone. And the most painful part is rarely because they're bad people or you're doing something wrong. It's simply that your journey's taken you somewhere different, and they can't tell where you're going. People talk a lot about loyalty, about sticking by the ones who were there from the start. And yes, loyalty matters, but loyalty to your growth matters even more. Because if you keep yourself small to stay connected to people who aren't evolving, you're not honoring your path, you're betraying it. Growth asks for space. It asks for intention. It asks for you to be brave enough to walk away from what's familiar, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. You're going to notice something on your journey. As you grow spiritually, emotionally, mentally, you'll become more aware of the energies around you. Conversations that used to excite you now drain you. Habits that once brought comfort now feel heavy. Environments that were once your safe space start to feel suffocating. This is what growth feels like. It's a soft, inner knowing that you're no longer the same and that you can't keep living as if you are. This is where separation becomes essential. Not because you're better than anyone, but because your values, your minds, your mindset, they've changed. And when your internal world shifts, your external world must follow. If not, the tension will grow. You'll feel stuck, misaligned, frustrated. That's like telling you it's time to move. Time to evolve. Time to create space for what reflects who you are becoming, not who you used to be. Sometimes this means letting go of friendships that have turned into obligations. Sometimes it means walking away from a relationship where love once lived, but growth has died. Sometimes it means leaving a job, a city, a dream you once fought for, because it no longer fits your vision. Separation is not failure. It's faith. Faith in the idea that your evolution is sacred, and not everyone is meant to stay for the whole journey. Of course, there would be guilt. You'll wonder if you're doing the right thing. You'll question whether you're being selfish. But growth isn't selfish. Staying stuck just to make others comfortable, that's where the real damage happens. You weren't put here to live someone else's version of your life. You weren't born to carry the weight of everyone else's expectations. You were born to grow, to rise, to become. And you'll find that the more you grow, the more you'll attract people who meet you where you are. People who don't pull you backward, but propel you forward. People who challenge you in the right ways, who understand your silence, who speak your language, without you needing to explain yourself. But you won't find them if you keep clinging to connections that only understand the older version of your view. So yes, growth will cost you. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you familiarity. It will cost you relationships that can't evolve with you. But what it gives you in return is priceless alignment, freedom, clarity, peace. It gives you the chance to live a life that's true to you, not one edited to make others comfortable. Don't fear the separation. Don't resist the distance. Embrace it. Let it clear the path for your next level. Let it strip away the noise so your true calling can rise. Because in the end, growth is not just about adding, it's also about releasing. And every time you let go of what no longer fits, you create space for the life you were always meant to live. There's a strange, almost mystical peace that follows after the storm of disconnection. At first, everything feels like chaos. Things are ending, people are leaving, your sense of stability is shaken. But once the dust settles, something unexpected emerges, peace. It doesn't come loud or dramatic. It arrives in moments, in deep breaths, in quiet mornings, in the absence of tension. And that's when you realize something profound. What you lost wasn't peace. What you lost was the source of your unrest. So many of us grow accustomed to living in chaos without even knowing it. We normalize dysfunction. We adjust the stress. We accept the emotional roller coasters. The constant explaining, the feeling of being drained by conversations and interactions that leave us heavy. And we convince ourselves it's just part of life. That love is supposed to be hard. That work is supposed to be soul-crushing. That relationships always come with drama. But when you finally disconnect from what was never meant to stay, your nervous system begins to relax. Your body, mind, and spirit remember what calm feels like. That's when peace begins to introduce itself, not as the absence of challenge, but as the presence of alignment. Suddenly you're not constantly overthinking what to say, how to act, or whether you're being too much or not enough. You're no longer walking on emotional eggshells. You're not tolerating energy that competes with your well-being. And you're not in survival mode, you're just being. And it's enough. Peace is often disguised by what you think you want. You want the relationship to work so badly, you ignore the red flags. You want the job to feel right, so you silence your intuition. You want the friendship to last, so you overextend yourself to keep it alive. But peace isn't found in forcing what doesn't fit. Peace is found in surrender, in letting go, in accepting that you don't have to beg for what is meant for you. What you begin to realize is that peace was always available, you just had too much noise in your life to hear it. The constant drama, the emotional labor, the situations that left you exhausted, they were blocking your ability to rest in your own energy. Disconnection, as painful as it can be, clears that space. It's like finally turning down the volume on a blaring speaker and hearing your own thoughts again, feeling your own needs, discovering what truly nourishes your soul. And the best part, peace brings clarity. When you're no longer caught in the whirlwind of other people's chaos, you can see what you really want. You start making choices from your values instead of your fears. You start setting boundaries that protect your growth. You start spending time with people who bring calm, not confusion. You stop chasing love that requires you to shrink. You start allowing the kind of love, work, and life that expands you. These also shifts your definition of success. It's no longer about what impresses others, or what feels good to you. It's about emotional stability, about waking up without dread, about living in such a way that your heart, your mind, and your body are all in agreement. Peace is success. It's the quiet knowing that you're no longer betraying yourself for connection, that the space you feared is now the very space that's healing you. Of course, the journey to peace isn't always smooth. There will be moments when you question if the disconnection was worth it, when nostalgia creeps in, when loneliness whispers that maybe chaos was better than silence. But every time you choose peace over pressure, alignment over attachment, clarity over confusion, you grow. You become someone who honors your inner world over outer appearances. And slowly that peace becomes non-negotiable. You stop entertaining anything that disrupts it. You become protective of your energy. You surround yourself with people who speak life into your dreams, not drain your spirit. You create routines that support your mental and emotional health. You design a life that reflects your truth, not your trauma. So if you're in the middle of a disconnection right now, hold on. The peace is coming. Maybe not all at once, but in small, sacred doses. In the absence of what once consumed you, a new kind of wholeness will grow. And one day you'll look around at the calm you're living in and think, this is what I was fighting for all along, Doc. Because some disconnections don't just free you, they restore you. They bring you back to yourself. And that, above all, is the greatest peace you'll ever know.